I guess I better get a handle on this forge here. Do you guys wet this coal or no?
It doesn't help.
It doesn't help, okay. Not even to just make it smaller? So I don't burn my face off? No, that's better. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Can't even bank it.
I should bring some coal from home. I didn't know.
Wherever you found that old flux, that must be behind the yours.
Yes.
That's the good old stuff.
So I'm just going to taper this out. Just in terms of your technique when you hammer, I learned working this way, like forming a triangle with my body, and you always want to hammer from your shoulder. When Francis taught people how to taper, not necessarily beginners, he would teach you to do this 45-degree position instead, so that you can see a lot more about what is going on with your material, and it's maybe you're not overreaching this way. It's a much more natural position for your body this way. So I don't always do that, but it's a nice thing to try to think about when you're tapering your material. I sure hope I can forge weld with this coal. I'm not real excited about it. It'll be a miracle if it works.
Do you the best you can.
If anybody has questions about anything, you can ask while we're heating material. It might be nice to have a hood on these too.
Like Scott calls it an eyebrow.
Yeah. So I'm going to be trying, what my goal, first I'm going to show you how to start a scroll, any scroll, and continue a scroll. But I'm also thinking about what this scroll over here looks like, because I'm going to be making a jig for it. So anytime you go to start a scroll, it's the same exact movement every single time. You come to the edge of your anvil. Hopefully your anvil has a rolled place on it right here. And you start hitting your material downward. When it gets close to touching the face of your anvil, you want to come back on it this way. So you can see I'm coming like this. I'm trying not to hit in the same place more than once. Flipping it, same thing. And I'm also rocking my arm up at the same time.
Left hand is management, Right hands is labor.
I'm also not afraid to hit once and look at it, because that's the biggest mistake you can make, is hitting in the same place more than once and then making it go too far in one direction. Again, keep that saying in your head at all times. If it's not right in the very beginning, it's not going to be right in the end, and then you're going to have a hard time going back and fixing it. Yes, we have cheating tools, but if you think that way from the beginning, then you're going to be more accurate. Francis used to get his coal from the Redstone mine here, and it was some of the highest quality coking coal in the world, but that mine is closed now and we don't have access to that coal anymore. I'm burning like my last garbage can full right now. It came out of that mine in either big huge chunks or like powder, and so you would have to crush it up and the big parts up, and then the powder, we would add water to it to make a slurry out of it so that it would hold together and coke up. Otherwise, if you tried to use it as powder, it would just blow away, and you'd have a big mess on your hands. When I first came out here and I was working down the road at Myers, they had the same coal, and I went to start a fire and I knew nothing about making a slurry out of it, and so when I went to start the fire, it just like blew all over the place, and I felt like a moron. And then I learned what I had to do, so everything was fine, but I was like, I don't know what you guys are using for coal here. And so when I at that point, I was just interviewing, and I hadn't moved here yet. So when Steve and I moved out here, I made sure that I brought like 2 trash can lids of Appalachian coal with me, which comes in perfect little chunks, like 3/4 inch chunks. And you don't have to water it or anything, it just cokes up and it's great. So there's different kinds of coal that you have to contend with as you go to different places, and can react in different ways. I'm starting this the same way I did in the beginning. It's kind of got to walk yourself around here. So I'm keeping in mind that I want this to fit in here. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. You don't need to do that. Thank you, though. It doesn't have to be perfect right this second, but you want to kind of get it pretty close, okay? James wants to cheat on it. Cheat on it in the beginning. So I wondered why the coal here was so different than Appalachian coal, being that it was all bituminous coal and would coke up nicely. If this is some of the highest quality coking coal that you could get here, and then the Appalachian coal is the same way, well, what's the difference? What I found out after talking to a lot of people was that the difference is the age of the Appalachians versus the age of the Rocky Mountains. These are much younger mountains, and they have not been under compression for as long. And so the makeup or the texture of the coal is different. So that was interesting to find out.
That's where it has the powder.
Yeah. At least that's what I'm told. And it made sense to me, so I'm going with it until somebody tells me different. You also want to keep your anvil clean, anvil face clean as you're working, so clean it off each time you take a heat. A little bit more. This is our scooper.
Right over here.
Oh, it is? Okay. Okay, so it's in there pretty loosely. It's a pretty close fit actually, but it can be a little worse than that too. You can kind of see there's a few gaps here and there. All right, so next step is to heat the whole thing, and then I'm just going to drive it right into this shape, and then you'll have a perfect jig made for that scroll. So now you've got a pretty big form going in the fire here, and you've got a taper in the middle of it, which is thinner than the rest. So you need to watch your material and make sure you're not going to burn it up. And you also want to try to make sure you get an even heat everywhere on your material, otherwise it may not sink into the form properly. This is really hot fire, you guys. Might have to get an asbestos suit. Where's my hammer? Make sure all your tools are where they need to be before you go to work. Okay, can everybody see that? Can the camera see it? Okay, so it's nice and tight in there. If you end up with like a spot that doesn't want to conform to your piece, you can use some cheating tools if you need to, and take some bending forks and kind of work it in the places that are not quite sitting the way you want. So to take it out, you just go like that, and you're out. So I'm just going to look at it and make sure that it looks pretty straight, that it is straight, not pretty straight. It's either straight or it's not, right? It might be. It's a little better. Okay. So, hang on. Don't touch that. Jesus. Okay. I need assistance.
Pull on it.
Pull. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Someday those will be anchored to the ground. Doing all the no-nos just so I can keep going. All right. So again, there's your view of what that looks like. It's kind of still hot, so let me do the offset and then you guys can play with it. Yeah, this is the jig for this. I just wanted to let you see how it looked. So now you need to do the offset, and we'll just do that real quick. So when you're, I'm not going to demonstrate this, but when you're pulling a scroll on one of these jigs, it's really important to honor the strength of the jig itself. So when you take a heat and you need to start your scroll enough so that you can wrap it around the inside of the scroll here and lock it on. And then you take another heat and you're going to start wrapping it around, right? You need to stop as soon as you get to cold material. If you overbend it, you're going to get a big kink in your material. Hot tamale, baby. So I've taken a heat part way down, and then I'm just going to drive this over. You want it to be, here's the scroll jig. You want to take this material, offset it enough so that it's at least past the other edge of the material. Hammer everywhere. Okay, so again, now that you've got your offset in here, you tighten this up. Your offset being parallel with the vise, and then you can pull your jig around and pull your material this way, and it's all out of the way. Okay, so there's that. Any questions about jigs? Okay. All right, so branching scrolls. One of the things that Tal Harris had, when I asked him, about quick tips from Francis, one of the things he brought up was on a branching scroll, we're going to be forge welding We're going to be doing it, I already did the forge weld here, so we're going to be doing this forge weld today. Francis, in his book, documents a jump weld instead of the way I have done it, and I feel that the way that, I think, Clay, you taught me to do it this way.
Well, when I first started taking this class, the first time we did the jump weld.
Yeah.
Next class, we started doing the branch and forge weld.
So what we're doing
It's
here,
so much easier.
it is, because you're not trying to come out of the fire with 2 pieces of hot material. Find exactly, the only way that you can see where you're going to be welding this on is to like make a nick in the material, and so that you can kind of see a bump and see where to align your 2 pieces together. It's really hard to get the heat exactly where you want it, and it's really hard to jump it on right there.
And it never looks right usually. It's always a different look to that.
It is. So the other way that you can do this is to make this all one piece, okay? And so that's what I've done here. And I've center punched it here, where I'm going to nick it, fold it, forge weld it lightly, and then go ahead and put a scarf on it to prepare it to weld to this other piece. One important thing that I had not encountered, because I guess I hadn't worked on flat bar doing this particular weld in quite a while, that was brought to be clear, was that if you're using square bar, I would have my scarf this way, okay? Being that this is square and this is square. In this situation, it's different. You're working with rectangular material, and so your scarves have to go actually this way. And it doesn't really matter, other than sometimes you get a cold shut and it might be more visible.
They were more important.
On square material, you can do it like this. On this flat bar, you have to do your scarves to the side, because otherwise it doesn't work out.
What I like to do is to mark my scarves. I put a diagonal line. That tells me the scarf on top goes that way, the scarf on the bottom goes that way. And that's the point I use to measure the length of my stock. It serves me 2 purposes.
Right. And I didn't get that technical with this. I had just marked it straight, so
Yeah.
I hope it's going to be all right.
Oh, yeah, it hurts.
But that's a good thing. The other purpose that making a diagonal here serves is, as you're getting prepared to do this weld, it helps you to visualize which way you need to make your scarves go, because you're going to get confused as you're working, so hopefully I won't screw it up. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and do this guy first. Having the right tongs for what you're working on is essential, especially when you're getting down and dirty into this sort of thing. I don't know.
You want to hold it like that?
Yeah,
No, that's
those are too big. This will work for now. A lot of these tongs feel really heavy to me, and when I make my tongs, I like to make the reins a little bit more delicate, but not so delicate that when I pinch my material I get too much spring either. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. A tool should feel good in your hands. Always remember that. Do we have tong clips? Are there tong clips around? My eyes are getting bad, you guys, so. Francis would always remind people that after you're done using a cut-off hardy or anything sharp in the hardy hole, go ahead and put it away because it's really easy to forget that it's there as you're working and you can really hurt yourself. Okay, so I'm going to lightly weld this together. So I've just nicked it, folded it back on itself, and I've left a little bit of air in there.
Did you cut it about halfway through?
Yeah, about half. Enough so that you can fold it easily, but not so much that you're worried about it burning off as you're heating it up. And if you are worried about it, then you need to have something right here as you're heating it up and coming out of the fire, right? I mean, you can still save it, but do we have tong clips?
Just this
Oh.
right now, or this,
Where's Francis?
well, they're coming.
Yes. Oh, thanks. I don't see my, oh, there it is. So I like to be able to see my material as I'm heating it up. This is very difficult coal because it's really heavily. Got it a little too hot. Wrong way. Fuck. Okay. So it's going to be, I went the wrong way, so I'm just going to wing it here. Hopefully it'll work. All right. Not an ideal scarf. I started the wrong direction, but I'm going to go for it. You can see
Did you flex that?
I did. So now I need to think about how this is going to go together, right? So this is my two pieces coming together. That's backwards, right? So coming together. So that's the direction I want my scarf to be in, right? So it's a good habit, so you don't forget to take some chalk and mark it so that you know what side you want to keep up. I'm probably going to have to redo this fire a little bit too. You do not want to put fresh coal into your fire for a forge weld. You need to get it in there before and get it coking up because you want to keep as many impurities out of your fire as you can. Yes. Oh, really? Okay, good. Well, let's get that in there.
I was in the class at the book school, one of my early classes, and Francis Woodard was in the forge weld.
See how that goes. Thank you. So when you do your scarf, I've already upset this. So you're going to kind of hold it on an angle. Take about half the thickness of the material. So I'm taking about half the thickness of the material and driving it down. But as I'm doing that, I'm also kind of pulling it away from the edge of the anvil. And I'm concentrating on trying to create a taper as I'm hammering it out. And you want the tip of your scarf to be pretty thin. Francis used to actually... Oh.
Right there.
Francis used to actually take the peen of the hammer at the end and actually peen it out at the end to make it even thinner. All right.
I don't know if there's any other students in the class with forge weld or not, but it was very frustrating for Francis. He couldn't figure out what was wrong.
Yeah, I bet. He was probably like, what the heck?
What was it? Well, 2 months later,
Too much what?
2 months later, Charlie Fuller
Oh.
says Easy Well Flux don't work anymore. I had bought a can of flux a year before and brought my own flux to the school, and Francis was using some that he just bought. And they had run out of the slag at the steel mill that they used to make the flux with, and it just would not work at all.
I don't know if that's going to be low enough.
Why didn't we say it? Francis tried my flux, but it's not like that. We didn't do it, and he never tried it, and Charlie Fuller figured it out. the formula back right. They got it chemically right, but they still wouldn't work.
You want to go lower now?
It would be better to have it a tiny bit lower.
Hold it for you.
If y'all want to, I mean, it's not necessary.
Just want to go lower.
Oh, okay. I never have help at home.
I know.
Don't tell Steve that.
Yeah, right. We don't say a word.
I'll be in bad trouble for that one. Okay. So that's going to come out to you. I like to practice what I'm doing because you're coming out of the fire and you're high energy. So what I like to do is, I don't believe that I have to finish a weld all in one heat. Some people do. I don't have as much luck as if I allow myself the luxury of getting it to stick. And then if I can get it to stick, I usually just get it back in the fire and heat it up to welding heat again. It's okay to do that, and we're not even using iron anymore. We're using steel. So again, with the subject of Francis having issues forge welding, we're not even using the original blacksmith material. Hopefully.
He has a little bit of depth of his, 75-pound drum or 50-pound drum back in the original book. And then he has a couple of other of the newer stuff. Got it.
So
Very important to clean out your fire before you forge weld. Get the clinker out.
yeah, there's quite a bit in here. And especially with this coal, I'm not really sure.
She's living dangerously. She hasn't forged with this coal.
Whoops, sorry.
Coal.
Yes, okay.
Most times they say don't do anything in a demo that you haven't done before.
Extra coke here.
Right?
We always forge weld with different coals. Francis made a piece coming down in the picture here.
So I've marked my material too so that we know, not that it's going to be not obvious, but it helps. So you want to have a clean fire, just like we were talking about. Get the clinkers out. Make sure you've got a good amount of coke. You do not want to, you want to have a nice bed of coal underneath your work. If you don't, you're going to get too much air flying up through there, and it's an oxidizing fire, and you're going to have trouble. You want to be able to have your pieces nested in there. You don't want a real open fire. You want it as closed as it can be, just so that you can still see your material in there. And also, I think it's important to keep turning your material around, because then you're getting an even heat on both sides. And by being able to see your material, you can make sure that one piece is not heating up sooner than another. And then the last thing is that think about heating beyond, getting a welding heat beyond where you want to weld. Then you're sure to get an even heat. ready? So it's stuck, but I'm going to put it back in. So now you can hang on to this end. That's much better. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed when I'm hammering it at the anvil, I'm doing kind of slow, quick taps, quick, kind of hard, solid taps, and that seems to help also. Francis didn't like the side draft forge because when you get like a big hoop or something and you're trying to forge weld it together, it's hard to maneuver it around. So that's why he liked the hoods up here. And I totally see the point of that, but I like a side draft too, so I don't know. Come on. I'm not really sure if we're quite there or not, but we're gonna go for it anyways. I turned 46 this year. Huh? Yeah, I know. Now, if you don't have a good weld, then you are not hammering on your material right now, okay? At this heat, I'm just letting you know that. But I got a good weld, so I'm okay. There is slight evidence of my weld. And if you don't like seeing that, if you're not sure if it's welded together, then you go back in the fire with some borax and you heat this up to a welding heat and you put borax on there and then you reforge that and it should take care of that. We can even do that if you want. Huh? Thank you for your help.
Did you mention different thickness stock?
I did. Clay just brought up again.
You've already mentioned it.
Yeah, I did, but you can always mention
I
it.
wasn't listening.
See what happens when you don't listen? Okay, so. Right.
Throw your back into the camera.
Oh, right. Yes, Lord knows we don't want that to be seen at this juncture of my life. Okay, so another thing Tal brought up, actually this is what I wanted to bring up with one of the first things he brought up was on this branching scroll, this radius here. So this is the dominant, can the camera see this? So this is the dominant scroll, this bigger one, and this is kind of like the sub-scroll. And reciprocally on this one, this seems like the dominant. You're looking for the continuation of the curve, and so whatever that one is would be the dominant one. So for example, if you're going to be using a scroll jig to continue making this scroll, you would actually go to your scroll jig and walk this guy around until you find out where it intersects your forge weld. And whatever that radius looks like, you want to go ahead and bend that now, okay, before you go ahead and form the rest of your scroll. We're not going to be forming to a jig on this. So I'm just going to go, since it's hot, I'm going to go ahead and try to get it close to that radius. Thank you. Anytime you work this weld, you work it hot, because otherwise you're going to run the risk of busting it open, okay? So just keep that in the back of your head as you go. Don't burn up your material. So I'm going to use top and bottom bending forks to assist me in getting this bend close to what I'd like it to be, because I can isolate exactly what I want and bend that. And since I'm trying to be real careful about not bending back and forth right on my weld, this will help to keep the activity down a little bit. I need to go to a bigger one, bigger size. And I'll talk about these bending forks in just a second. I want to show you how I'm using them first, and then we can talk about that. Remember which way you're bending.
Alison is not mounted yet on the floor, so we welded this piece on that we can stand on so we can work with the dies. The same way with the treadle hammer, it worked really great this morning with that piece welded on the floor.
So starting to get close. So this is the other benefit of doing your drawing on metal and then having the silver pencil. Again, if you want it to last even longer, then you scribe it. That's kind of close to where I want it to be. I'm going to keep bending this around. So does anybody have any questions about forge welding? Was that a good enough explanation? A good explanation? No, this is Easy Weld, and this is the old time Easy Weld. It's like the magic Easy Weld. It actually has chips of metal in it, and so it's a little stickier, which is kind of nice. But I just use the contemporary Easy Weld at home. And I have also been in situations where I felt like I couldn't even flux my material. and had to forge weld without it. It's possible. So just depends on your situation. I was doing a demo in Grand Junction, and they had stoker coal, which has been oiled, and it burns so hot. And they had this giant fire, and I was doing a forge welding demo, and I had no idea. I couldn't even get near it, let alone flex it. So I was just pulling stuff out of there and hoping. It worked, but it was scary. When you're trying to fit a scroll to your drawing, you always start in the center and work your way out. If it's not right in the middle, it's not going to be right when you get out here. And if you adjust out here, and then in here, and then out here again, you're going to be going back and forth and trying to change the different problem each time. And you can see how many places there are on your anvil to work a scroll and to try to adjust it. So, let me see how this is doing. That looks like I need to go around a little bit further. So I think I'll heat here and kind of do a little bit more work there. How are we doing on time? 4. It's almost 4. Jeez Louise. Got 1 hour. So I'm going to adjust this a little bit further, and then we're going to move on, and I'm going to go ahead at home and tweak this for like 4 or 5 hours. And then bring it back. So you guys don't have to like watch the torture. Francis used to say, 40% of the job is forging and 60% of the job is fitting, and that couldn't be more true. So,
Forging is fast and tweaking is forever.
yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to stop on that. So I'm going to have to pull this other guy over and work with that. But that's the way you do a branching scroll. So with these bending forks, do we have the patterns anywhere? Has anybody seen those by any chance? The patterns for the bending forks? Patterns for these? Have a look in those drawers. Okay, you could do that, sure. So these bending forks are made out of used grater blade. So you can go to your local DOT like in the springtime and they'll have broken grater blades and you can get yourself some. It comes at about 3/4 of an inch thick, maybe 5/8 thick, and it's going to have a slight radius on it, and so you're going to have to flatten it out. But it's hard, hard, hard. So you have to heat it up, anneal it, flatten it, anneal it in kitty litter or lime or whatever, and then you can work on it. It's still going to be really hard material though, okay? But it's great for bending forks. There's some special features about these that we should talk about. James is going to do a diagram of how these are made, but you can see that there's different sizes on both ends of these for working with different widths of material. You should have a top fork that corresponds to that. You can see that this doesn't. Oh, you can see that this one doesn't correspond to this one. But, yeah, that guy matches. So your top and bottom forks should match each other. The other thing that's important about these is that there's a slight bevel on each corner so that when you put your material in there and tweak it, it's not going to get a big divot in the material. Any other features that you think are important about these, Gordo? Okay. So James has drawn up here the steps on making these kinds of forks, and he can describe that to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, take the grater blade, cut out a notch here, and forge this part out. Then drill a bunch of holes. Saw it down with the saw, drill a bunch of holes here. Take this away, grind it out, and then grind this barrel in. Finish it with a file and sandpaper so that the material that goes through here will not get any marks from the sharp edges.
And we have the pattern, we should have the patterns for these here. I'll try to dig them out, and if you guys want to trace them before you go home and make yourself some, then you could do that. The other thing that I wanted to point out before I stop is how these are used, because Francis was really particular, and for good reason, about this, is when you're using the bending forks, first of all, where you're bending. When you lock into the bottom fork, the bottom and top fork, you're going to bend what's in between here. Okay, so that's how you're going to be using these. You can either use them to close, or you can use them to open. Okay, anytime you're adjusting a scroll, you may have a point that's overbent that appears like kind of a little point on your material, or you may have a flat spot that would appear like a flat spot in your material. And those are the things that you would utilize these two these two tools for, to try to get rid of those. When you are going to adjust your material, it's nice to have some chalk. And go ahead, you can actually go ahead and mark on here, like here's where I want to open. Because sometimes when you get over here, it's hard to see. And then you can get it into your tooling And that looks like an overbend to me, so I would be opening. The other thing that you want to do is don't use the top fork going downward, because it'll take it out of, it'll put a twist in it, and then the other thing it does is you can't really see your material quite as well, and so that would be the purpose of this.
On large scrolls, you can put a mark here every so often and take small incremental bends in it to get the rough shape, and then go back and refine it. And if you have to do it open it, then you make the mark on the inside.
True, right. On the inside or outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the other thing to remember is if you have quenched your material at any point and you're going ahead and trying to adjust it, you're going to definitely have a hard spot. Some of it's going to be hard and some of it's going to be soft, so you're going to be dealing with that. So if you know that you have to adjust something, then you let it air cool so that it's soft when you do that. You don't want to you can work your material hot or you work it when it's cold. Working it in between is dangerous. Okay.
Comment. Francis felt that if you always did it the same way and got in the habit of, for instance, pulling the material, it's much easier to pull it
Yes.
than to push it.
Yes.
So the thing to do is if you're trying to open, work on the other side of the fork. So
Right.
it's still you're much more in control of what the movement, if it's a pulling action, than you are if it is a pushing action.
You're right.
So being as uniform in how you use the tool as possible improves the accuracy.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any questions about the forks? All right, we've got another hour, a little less than that. Clay is going to demonstrate a pass-through for us at this time, so.
Another comment on the bending forks is if you want to make an oblong scroll and you have a pattern already, then you can set the pattern down and do it the same way. And mark it on the inside or outside which way you have to go. An oval scroll has to be bent with bending forks.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
And also you can make congruent patterns. If you have an oval scroll that you want to duplicate, lay it down and put the other one right on top of it, and you can duplicate it through this method.
What do you need, Clay? You need fire?
James, please. Okay, I've got a couple of things I'm going to do to make sure it does run in and out. One of them is make the foot for the base for this. Shown
I don't know
here.
if I drew it right.
Well, I don't know if you did either, because I'm free-handed.
I know. There's some
This face here, and then we
ambiguity.
got a small.
You were lucky. You were lucky.
No doubt.
This,
Good Lord.
in the middle of the base piece, and then lifting it on here, and then a tenon on the top here, and with a little taper in the middle to go from 3/4 square down to match up this 1/2 inch square that she's been working with here. So this piece is more trouble than I thought.
I figured it would be.
You did.
Yes. But we really wanted to get like a lot of different processes in this piece, so that was like the only way we could think to use this pass-through, so that's how we're doing it. I'm going to pass this sheet around. Did I pass this around? Yeah, I did. Okay, great.
Somebody wanted me to put it in the forge backs.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Are you gonna be here tomorrow?
Uh-huh. I'm going to try to be here as much as I can over the weekend.
Maybe I can make a copy of it in the office over there.
And the other thing is I'm going to have stuff from other people too, so maybe somehow we put it together. Because like Clay practically wrote a book already, like when I said I wanted to do this. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. He was like, oh, here. So, but he wants to, I want you to talk to him about that.
They're free. Somebody like it up. Putting the mic on, you're demonstrating. No, I know. Who is? Right. Oh, boy. Where the hell is he? Get the mic on you, Clay.
Thanks.
Is there anything you want me to get for not doing it at the power hammer? Is there any, I don't know that we have any.
Not that I know
All
of.
right.
Yeah, I guess. Not quite.
What are we doing?
Well, want to end up with this from that,
Is this for the, what's
the base. That's this piece. And then this piece, if we have time, I doubt it. This is going to take a while.
Which piece now?
This is the three-leg base.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's a piece that connects the base to that.
And
Which,
that's what you had a hard time with?
no, this.
Oh, that.
This one is, this is that.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I keep trying to think of everything.
That's why Francis said it.
I wish I could remember everything I know.
I wish I could
So
remember
true.
everything I forgot.
I know. That's the hard part, right?
That too.
Which you want first?
We'll do this, start this first.
This one?
Now this, but I want to talk about it first. I got enough for a handle. Well, the crowd has left, so we got to get them back in here if they want to watch. Okay, the piece I'm going to be working on is the base here, three-legged foot. And I figured the two legs would go under the heavy part here, and the one leg would go out under that. This is a test piece I worked on yesterday to get, and we I wanted to get this down to 3/4 square. It's a little bit under that with the piece I made. And I want it to be as close to a square as I can. So what I'm going to do first, I've marked out here where I want on here, and I need to mark that where I'm going to fuller in this position here so I can draw that out to about twice the length or maybe more. And then I'll cut it off as I need it. Then fuller on this side, the hole's going to be here, so that's going to be drawn down to 3/4 square right in this area. And then I'll split this end on the treadle hammer and then adjust my lengths later. So I'm probably going to split more and draw out more than I really need. I could calculate it, but calculating is no fun. It's not something we like to do. So, right.
So is that your test piece now?
This is my test piece here. And I learned something I had forgot. James and I were just, and Alison were just talking about, we wish we could remember what we knew. We wish we could remember what we forgot. And I had forgotten about the side cutting chisel that Francis recommended, and I forgot to fuller these, so I got some ugly pieces here. So I got my fuller set up in the hammer to fuller that before I draw this out. This is 1/2 by 1.5. And then the little stem piece here that goes between the base and the piece, it's 3/4 square. You're going to have a 3/8 tenon on the end to go through there and have a taper in it, and then we're going to rivet it into the legs there. Anybody have any questions? So I'm going to mark where I want a fuller here. And I've marked fullers on both sides here, but I'm not going to do that because this side here is just going to essentially go out straight from where I end up with a square. So I'll just fuller in here and then essentially go straight and then draw this out. I made some kiss blocks to help me with drawing it out to the size I want. So I want from here,
All the way out?
all the way out, or mainly I want to get that fuller. No, I want this fuller.
You want that first?
Yeah. Never leave a hardy in the anvil while you're working. Everybody knows that. I guess that's Alison's hammer. And we can heat this and draw out the end of it. I don't know, y'all making an old man work too much. Worked all morning, now I gotta work some more before I get my supper. That ain't fair. But it's my fault. I talked to Alison, she was gonna demonstrate, the forged wells and the scrolls and James do the collars and the square corner. I said, it'd be way nice if we could make a piece to put in the auction that's got a lot of different things in it. So she did what she was going to do, and then I got selected to do the base and the here. So did you talk about the oval scroll?
No, we didn't. Go ahead.
Okay. Some places you can't fit in a regular scroll. And the Francis solution to that was an oval scroll. It's not circular, it's a spiral with flats in it, I guess, is one way to describe it. So, and you have to do this, I don't think you can do them on a jig. You probably could if you did if I had 100 of them do, I'd dang sure have a jig of some sort to do it. But that is a filler for some different spaces where you can't put a regular, essentially round scroll in.
When you want to close one, you gotta work it all the way around again.
Yep. Are you good? All right. Let me get an earplug in here. I didn't put one in this morning. Whoops. Wrong thing. Okay, there's the earplug. Yeah. Can you still hear me? Is the sound still good?
I think so.
Okay, he gave me the high sign. Yep. Okay. Did it pop loose? Can you still hear me? I thought something maybe pulled, but okay, I'm just a hair over 3/4, so we're good to go there. At the very end, I need to do the whack over the anvil thing again. Well, I thought I might find the drawing dies up close, but I didn't, so sorry about all the noise I made there. Is that one hot? Okay, we'll put a taper on the end of this, enough to make the tenon and get it down to 1/2 inch square. Yeah, the whole thing. Okay, we've pretty much got that down. It'll put a taper on the end there. There's no dimensions here, so I'm good. I got that flexible measure.
We talked about 1 inch. You do whatever you want.
Do what?
I said 1 inch tall.
Oh, you
We
did.
talked about 1 inch.
Okay, we can do that.
Just do whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm 3/4 in this dimension, but I'm a little less in this dimension, so we're gonna live with that. One of the things I heard that Yellen said was forge it then draw it, and I don't know whether that's true or not. But I've got way more than I want on here. We were talking about the base would be 8 inches long, and I got 8 inches there, and I'm going to draw this out thinner yet, so I might as well cut it off rather than keep doing more work to it that's wasted effort. Now, I may have to call on Dan again to find my cutting tool here. Here's a different one that we made in the Tennessee Tire Hammer Tools Workshop. It's made out of S7. It was milled rather than forged like I forged it, that one this morning. We do a lot of things by rule of thumb, educated guess. Where'd it go? All right. Same place all the way. Now, we were talking about drawing out scrolls earlier and how much is it going to grow. And that's one of the places where you use a rule of thumb that you, from your experience of what you have done previously, as to how much. Gordo, you said yours draw out a lot of times about 3/4 inch.
3 times.
3 times.
I always use 4 times the thickness. Mine tend to go 3 times.
Uh-huh. 3 times the thickness. And you can calculate that by a triangle. You know, the base height, 3 times the height for some triangles. All right, I'm gonna I've got some kiss blocks here that one is 5/8 and this one is half. Okay, you'll notice I'm floating this steel usually because it's got a notch on it. When the hammer hits it, it makes a step. So if I try to push it in, it stops against that step. So if I float it, then I can go in and out with it. Take baby bites, Clifton Ralph said. Now I want to leave that in the middle there where I'm going to drift that hole. I want to leave it closer to 5/8 or 3/4. Yeah, hammer jumped on me a bit. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. Wait a minute. That was half by 1 1/2 when we started, and I'm cutting it in 2, so it's going to be 3/4, and that's my kiss block there is 3/4, so I'm good. You better come over here and watch me, Alison. Okay, so the kiss block gets me down to 3/4 without any really worrying about it there. So I want to draw this out in the, just stick in the fire till I get set up on the end. All right, where did I put my half-inch kiss block? Right here it is. You got it there? Oh, that's probably a little longer than the 4 inches or so we were shooting for, but and it's a little thicker than I want, so I'm probably going to draw it out more out on that end, even if it does make it longer, because I think it's going to look better. And we were talking about putting a scroll on the end. That needs more heat. And we also talked about doing a jog on it here. So my original was to start with 4 and then draw it out, and then I'll have enough space, enough stock to do the jog there to make up the rest of the length. I call this a gap gauge, and to me it's one of the handiest tools I have to get my stock the right length after I do a forge weld, to get it back to shape after I do a square corner, to get it back to the size. I guess I shouldn't have put all my tools up this morning, should have just left them all out.
What you looking for?
Fuller flatter. Fuller flatter. It should be in this box rather than the other one. Find one? Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate your help today, man. Whoops. Yeah. You got to be careful now. That hammer could destroy that. Okay, so we've got it with a nice taper in it here, and it's flared out a bit, so that would give a nice look to the foot. We can still flare it out more if we want to, but we'll start working on the other end now and cut it off and split it. Three-quarter there and a 1/16 under there. Okay, Dr. James, I need the heat back here.
All right.
We'll cut off a amount that would give us twice as long as the other one because we're splitting it, so we won't draw it out as much.
You talked about you're doing 3 instead of 4.
Talking about what?
We had talked about doing 4 feet.
Yeah.
And then we decided 3 was more interesting.
Yep.
Just an aesthetic thing. And this is not critical, this dimension here, and it's only this.
It's a good thing.
So, yeah, right. It'll be perfect, whatever it is. Well, but it can make a difference, even if it's not critical for, because it has to fit into a space. Aesthetically, you want it to read properly, to the eye. You don't want it to be too long or too short. So that's when that one comes into play.
So I'll have to get her to show me where to cut it off.
No, you don't. You can make that judgment.
How are we coming, James? Tenon swage. Thank you. All you have to do is walk over and find it. Yep. Okay. Now, I'm trying to figure out what I wrote down for the length that I want to cut it off at. Yeah. My gap gauge or tenon gauge, some people call it, has inch marks on the back of it, so I use it for measuring the lengths of things also.
Ready.
Let me get the right tool. tongs and catches. Can't be picked up, huh? That's good enough. Yeah. Francis says you should train your eye to cut in the middle of stock. Mine is still in training. I'm proud of how well that centered.
You're pretty well trained on.
I wish I could do it again. On the other side.
So you were working that really cold. Your tools aren't your tools like H3 or something or H2? And so as you're working, you're not so worried about it
No.
getting hot.
It may be Avenue S1, which Rob Gunner introduced me to. It's an old tool that I've had for years. It could be H13, but I don't think so. Either one of them's air hardening. Either one of them, just keep on cutting, don't worry about it. If this gets red hot, it'll still cut red hot, Steve. It don't care.
But that's not the case with all tools. Steel.
No.
So you have to be
All the old blacksmith tool steels were W1, just a high carbon steel, and you 3 hammer blows cool it. Keep that tip cool, and you could cut with just plain high carbon steel. But some,
You have to keep your material hot too as you're working it. You can't work it that cold, right?
yeah. I usually mark my steel cold with this, but we had it already hot. And it works good for marking it cold. I'm thrilled with this stuff. It's wonderful. Fantastic. Francis had cut from one side, but that leaves you a pretty good sized V. We could saw it.
That would be different fun though.
That's not traditional. They had saws back in the 13th century. Oh, Francis said, get your metal hot, let it sweat so you don't have to. And I'm sweating. And somehow or another, my handkerchief got out of my pocket this morning. It won't hurt me to sweat. It's good for me. And one of the tools Francis used for cutting slits so you don't have so much burr. Would it be helpful if I held it still? Yes. It's a side chisel. This one, normally they don't have that notch in there. I saw a crack in there, and I'm going to be cutting here, and I'm going to be hammering out here. So I didn't need this for cutting, so I just ground the crack off for fear that it might propagate and go on somewhere else where I don't want it to. Now, the other thing I want is false jaws in the vise. These jaws give you a rounded corner, and usually we would have them in 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, 1/2 inch, maybe not bigger than 1/2 inch. That's a pretty good radius. There, you just take a piece of plate, put it in your vise jaws and bend them over. We hot, James? I appreciate James helping me. I can talk while he's heating. And he usually don't burn too much of my steel.
Not too much.
He was getting some pretty good bubbles on it this morning, some of it. Now that I've got a groove, I can be more aggressive. Something needs oil, and I hear squeaking on the treadle hammer.
Clay,
Yo.
something I want to point out to everybody is last night this trail hammer was dancing across the floor. It was rock side to side a little bit too. So what we did is we trimmed it on both sides with some tar paper. And as a result, not only did it shim it to keep it from rocking, but it has stuck to the tar paper, and this tar paper is stuck to the floor, and it's not rocking.
And thank you again, Dan. It's working wonderful. And I meant to tell you that earlier today, and I didn't. I said I meant to tell you that it was working wonderful earlier today.
Is it hot?
This is. You can see the tar paper under there, but man, and James welded this piece on the front. Well, yesterday it was rocking 6 inches or more. Okay, I'm getting to the point now to use the side chisel. I've got a notch cut in the end there, and I'm fairly well through, but I don't see any of the marks from the other side, which means one of two things. I either did a perfect job, which I didn't, or it's not quite through yet. Okay, I can see now where the chisel from this side is making a little dent on the other side. So we'll get it hot and go in the vise and then use the side chisel.
Clay,
Yes, sir.
you got 5 minutes to finish this.
We're not going to finish it today.
I mean, this piece, hot piece. 5 minutes to finish the hot piece.
We're not going to finish it. All right. Wow, what happens at 5 o'clock?
I don't know. They told me to tell you 5 minutes.
Who said, oh, you got to change? I need to get a drink of water. Okay. I'm sorry.
What kind of edge do you have on that side chisel? Is it pretty much the same kind of edge?
Yeah, it's just a sharp, but it's kind of broad, and I just forge it quick and dirty right here, and the water cans. Where's the water can? Francis called these a Tennessee valve. It's got holes in the sides of it. One of his students from Tennessee came up with that idea where you could sprinkle with this side and pour with the other side. Okay, how hot is it, James?
No, pull it out.
Hot enough?
Yeah.
It's either
All right, there's a hammer there. Oh, that's good. Is this good for the camera? Oh, it's too high for me. You want to strike for me, please, sir? Get out on the end. is slowing down. See if we can get another 1/4 inch or so. Should have got a bigger hammer.
I want a bigger.
Let's put some more heat on it. Oh. Okay. You got it here? There's very little rag on that. There's still some there where I cut. But it's got some hammer marks. James left his mark on this piece. Now we get down, we're pretty close now to where the point we're going to take a little fuller and go in there and fuller that ends where it's round. I think we probably to the point we want to use the fuller now. Let's see.
Do you see the one you want?
Yeah. That was a hot cut. Cold cut at one time. This will work.
Here, what about this guy's even thinner maybe?
Yeah, that's good.
Do you want to hit that with a sledgehammer or regular hammer?
No, just a regular hammer. Bring me some water, Andy, please. You want to make a little radius in the end, so we use a fuller rather than continuing with a cut.
He says he opened it for you too, since you're bossy.
Okay. Now my sweet wife done went and got me a Mountain Dew.